policy choice. It is the duty that I took on when I came into office, and that's I continue to see it that way. And I think that every Filipino sees it that way, and they depend and they expect their leaders to fulfill that duty, to be true to their oath, to defend the Republic and its territory and its people.
Let me ask you more broadly about the People's Republic of China. What kind of neighbour would you like the PRC to be? Well, Mr. President, thank you very much. Thank you for first of all, thank you for paying the audience the compliment of giving a speech that was substantive, that was direct, and that was memorable, and a speech that will be closely read in capitals around the world. Thank you for plugging the Asia Power Index. My colleagues at the Lowy Institute appreciate that. And thank you for agreeing to take some questions from me and also from our audience. Let me start by asking you about the theme of sovereignty and territorial integrity. In your speech today, you said, you talked about actions in your part of the world that were provocative, unilateral, and unlawful. And you said, we shall never surrender even 1 square inch of our territory and maritime jurisdiction. And last week in your speech to the Parliament, you sounded that theme too. You said, as in 1942, the Philippines now finds itself on the front line. And you said, the challenges that we face may be formidable, but equally formidable is our resolve. We will not yield. Now, these are powerful words. And the world has noticed how you have been more assertive than your predecessor in countering Chinese actions to block your fishermen from accessing their fishing grounds, to intimidate Filipino maritime forces. Why is this so important to you? Why have you taken this stance?
Well, it is, I took an oath, and then in that oath, the oath is to support and defend the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. And the first article of our Constitution is the definition of our territory, maritime and otherwise. And these have been validated over very many years. The original definition, actually, of our boundaries were laid out on the Treaty of Paris after the Spanish-American War. And since then, we have been that definition, if you want to call it that, has been validated by many actions by, for example, the United States, by UNCLOS, and the baselines agreement that we have had, and it has been recognized as the sovereign territory of the Philippines. And therefore, it was not, in my view, when I came into office, we simply have no choice. We must defend the territory of the Republic. And that is a primordial duty of a leader. And that's why we have taken a very strong position in that we cannot allow a unilateral decision made by some foreign capital far away to somehow amend or to change those definitions in terms of our territory. So what we will do whatever it takes to maintain that situation, wherein it is very, very clear that the territorial integrity of the Philippines cannot be threatened. And if threats are made, then we must defend against those threats. And it's for me, it's almost as I said, it wasn't a matter of policy choice. It is the duty that I took on when I came into office, and that's I continue to see it that way. And I think that every Filipino sees it that way. And they depend and they expect their leaders to fulfill that duty, to be true to their oath, to defend the Republic and its territory and its people.
Let me ask you more broadly about the People's Republic of China. What kind of neighbour would you like the PRC to be?
Well, until the declaration of the changes now of the territorial definitions, we still have friendly relations with China, but these issues never arose. And I would not mind very much at all if we could return to that same situation now, where we deal with each other as neighbors, and we deal with each other and help one another. But the Philippines was the first country in Asia to foster diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. That agreement was signed in 1976, and I happened to have been part of the original delegation in 1974. It was an unofficial delegation, but it was an invitation from then Premier and Foreign Minister Zhou Enlai, and it was to open the discussions on having diplomatic relations with China, because we recognized immediately that China is an important neighbor, is an important partner, and that we must deal with such an important neighbor and such an important partner. The relations that we have with China go back way beyond 1976. They go way beyond that. For centuries, we have been trading with China. The evidence, the archaeological evidence shows that we have been trading with China for about 600 years now. And there are very few, if we are to examine DNA, there are very few Filipinos with no Chinese DNA. My family actually makes much of the fact that we were actually, we have within our family tree a Chinese, infamous Chinese pirate who used to operate within the waters of then the South China Sea. So that cannot be discounted, and that has always been in our as part of our thinking as we look to China. But however, I suppose the modern world has brought about different forces, has brought about different policies that they have undertaken, but it is of course every country's prerogative to define what their policies will be. But I think that even the powers that be will understand that it is, as I said, our duty to continue to defend the sovereignty of the Republic of the Philippines, its territories, its sovereignty, its sovereign rights, its people, and its territory.
All right, let me ask you about a different relationship, that between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And again, there's been a change under your presidency, a greater openness and warmth, I would say, towards Washington, and some changes in terms of access to bases and so on. What kind of a role do you want to see Washington playing in the Indo-Pacific?
Well, I think what the Americans are doing in the Asia Pacific right now is really a reaction to the developments in terms of the approach that China has taken as regards to, again, territorial rights. We have a very special relationship with the United States. They are the well, actually, we have there are only two countries with which we have a visiting forces agreement. Number one is the United States. The second one is Australia. But with the United States, we have had for decades now, for decades past, a mutual defense treaty. And the agreement in that mutual defense treaty is that a declaration of war to one country is a declaration of war to the other. And that has maintained. And that has been there for since very soon after the Second World War. And I think that role, we maintain that role for the Americans, and I think that it still serves as a stabilizing force somehow, and it still manages to be a force for the good. We need for it to continue to be a force for the good. We cannot allow it to overtake, as I said in my remarks, to overtake what are the essential priorities of the Philippines. And I've always wanted to make it clear, because there is a narrative out there that is going around that we are at the beck and call practically of the United States when it comes to these foreign policy decisions, especially surrounding the South China Sea. But let me make it very, very clear. The Philippines acts for its own interests. And the decisions that we make when it comes to foreign policy are decisions that we make because we believe and are convinced and know that it is in the national interest. It is not a policy that has been foisted upon us by any country. It is something that we have come to on our own. It is a conclusion that we have arrived at by ourselves, and we have acted upon those conclusions that we have made. So it really goes back to a rejection by the Philippines of a regression into the old bipolar Cold War formula, wherein the smaller countries, such as the Philippines, were basically forced into choosing. You choose to be with the United States or with the Soviet Union. And in a way, it was a simpler time, and it was easier perhaps for countries to make that decision. That is no longer relevant. That no longer applies. The world has turned very, very many times since then. And we define our foreign policy really very simply. Our foreign policy is grounded and anchored on the continuing promotion and work for peace, and the continuing promotion and work for the national interest of the Philippines. And that is what guides us. That is that is the principle that we follow, and I think it is the right one.
Let me ask you about the theme that you were just discussing, and that is the rights and prerogatives of smaller countries in the region. The powerful point I think you were making in your remarks today is that we can't shrink Asia to the dimensions of great power competition between the United States and China, that there are many countries in our region and all of us deserve a place in the sun, and none of us wants to live in the shadow of one big country. You said that we need to be active participants, not observers. Do you think other countries in the region are rising to that challenge? Are they being active participants in international relations, or are they simply observing the great power competition?
Well, if we are talking about Asia, ASEAN, Indo-Pacific as well, I cannot think of an example where people are just standing idly by and watching events go on, evolve, without taking any action. Because the world being what it is now, so interconnected, it is impossible to find a global event or a international event, no matter where it is, that does not affect you, your country, your people. Just as a simple example, when Russia entered Ukraine, we in the Philippines were saying, well, that's not a good development. but it shouldn't affect us at all. It's very far away. We were quite mistaken thinking that, because within weeks, the effects of for example, the fertilizer prices, the loss of the supply chains, the interruptions in the supply chains, suddenly our economies greatly suffered from that. Again, when the attack on October 7th of Hamas into Israel, again, you said, well, neither of them are oil producing, so it shouldn't bother the oil prices, which is something, of course, we all look at to see what the trends are. And we were once again mistaken, because yes, Gaza does not produce any oil, neither does Israel, but the implications of that increasing conflict has now hit all of us because of what's happening in the Red Sea, what's happening in the rest of the Middle East, what's happening between Iran and the United States. So it would be foolish for any country to just be a passive observer. If we are to truly attend to the interests of our countries and our people, we must be engaged. We must be part of the discussion, and we must hopefully be part of the solution.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to give the audience or a couple of members of the audience an opportunity to put a question to you. Let me ask you about Australia and AUKUS,
yes,
because you made a point of mentioning AUKUS, and you said AUKUS will enhance regional stability. Why do you think that's the case? Why are you pro-AUKUS, and what sort of role in the Indo-Pacific do you want to see Australia playing?
Well, I think it follows just a very simple basic principle that a coalition has, because it has a larger base, is much more robust in resisting any kind of unilateral move by any other country. And AUKUS being another one of these partnerships or alliances that have been formed, I think strengthens the position of Asia, of ASEAN, of the Indo-Pacific, once we are confronted with challenges and threats. And that's why for our part in the Philippines, as president, I have tried very hard to foster those partnerships and those alliances, because we need, for example, I hold very great hope for ASEAN to be a central player when it comes to resolving those issues. The Philippines, we know we cannot resolve this alone. We know that we cannot do this by ourselves. We need the synergy that's provided by these alliances and partnerships. And in a way, it's a good thing that it seems to be the general consensus amongst ASEAN member states and Asian countries. And when I say Asian countries, I now include Australia. I have included always Australia in that discussion. That is a general consensus that this is the best way to maintain the peace. It is the best way to maintain stability, to keep the South China Sea as a peaceful and vibrant part of international trade, and continue with our transformation into the new post-pandemic global economy.
All right, fabulous. Let me take a couple of questions from the audience. If you would like to ask a question, put your hand up right now. Please wait till you get the call, then wait for a microphone to come. Then I'm going to ask you to ask a brief question rather than making a statement, and tell us your name and affiliation. I saw this lady on the edge. Yes, madam.
Thank you very much, and very much appreciated your honesty and clarity of thinking. It's a great honour to hear you speak. My name's Paula Giles, just an independent member of the public. I was just curious whether you saw a future for ASEAN to be similar to NATO, that one person's aggression of one state would also trigger a response by the other states as a potential future is ASEAN.
Well, ASEAN, this is something, of course, that we have tried to look at. And we have to also recognize that despite the fact that we are a very long-standing political aggregation, geopolitical aggregation in ASEAN, there are very many, there are clearly commonalities, and that's why we have come together under the umbrella of ASEAN. Nonetheless, there are many differences as well. And the approach that each country takes is informed by their own particular needs and concerns, and that complicates the ability for ASEAN to come up with a single central position or statement of position. And it's not something that we must not, if we feel that they have not been robust enough in their support and the calls for more action, then we should not really begrudge them that, because each state has its own interest. What we are looking for is simply a very simple foundation, and that is the rule of law, UNCLOS. And I think if we just abide by that, that is sufficient. That is sufficient. Every country has all kinds of arrangements with the People's Republic, the Philippines as well. Let me not exclude the Philippines from that. Certainly we do. There are a great many Chinese investments in the Philippines. There are a great many Chinese nationals in the Philippines. There are a great many what we now refer to as Chinese Filipinos who were born in China. So these impact everything that the Philippines is doing, but in like fashion, it impacts what every other country in ASEAN is also doing.
I saw this lady in the middle of the third row. If you just wait for a microphone, madam.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon.
And your visit to both Canberra and Melbourne really signifies your commitment to strengthen the bilateral relations between Filipinos and Australia. And we admire your strong foreign policy. Now, my question is, what would be your message to Filipino Australians in Australia and the Philippines to actually deepen those people-to-people links on a granular level?
Well, I would really just start any response to that by saying that our nationals who have come to work and live, the 400,000 now, who have come to work and live in Australia, have done us proud. And the raising of our relationship to a strategic partnership, I think, is just almost an evolution of what our OFWs, we refer to them as OFW, Overseas Filipino Workers, the OFWs in Australia, and the very close, the very fine relationship that they have come to have with Australians. And so all of these more, shall we say, formalized agreements that we are doing with Australia now are really based on that, the people-to-people relationship that has been established by Filipinos in Australia. I do not think that if the Filipinos came to Australia and committed crimes and were not contributing to society or to their community, or would not assimilate into their communities, then we could not do this. But the Filipinos in Australia have, in fact, managed to do that. And that's why we have the ability now to come to Australia and say, look, this is what we are doing, what our people are already doing with each other. So we might as well formalize it. And there are now new challenges that we need to address. And we can build, that's what we build upon. And so, if there is a message to Filipinos in Australia, thank you. Thank you very much for burnishing the image of the Philippines in Australia. Keep up the good work.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know there are others who want to ask questions, but we've run out of time this afternoon. President Marcos, thank you again for speaking to us. It was a rare privilege to hear from you. I've learned a lot tonight, including the value of clear thinking, but also I did not know that you had a pirate in your ancestry.
Oh, yes,
and
yes,
I might say that it sounds more fun and romantic for you to have a pirate in yours than the convicts I have in mine.
I'm sure it wasn't fun at the time. His name was Limahong. I think many people from the Philippines and China know of him, a notorious pirate who used to operate around the northern Philippines. And
right.
That's where we come from,
right.
Our family comes from. So he must have landed one day and had...
These days, of course, we're against piracy in the region. But, Mr. President, we hope that your meetings over the next day or two are fruitful. Let me just say, I know you were in Canberra last week, you're in Melbourne this week. If you happen to be in Sydney next week, please come and visit us at the Lowy Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking President Marcos.
Thank you. Thank you very much.